you had one of the highest downloaded podcasts for day one that we've ever launched.
Shut up. No way.
Yeah. So yeah, because you did about like 500 downloads almost in the first like
It was
5
it
days of
was
the
so
podcast.
stupid. I was like, I cried. I was like, I did not think that this was like.
Most podcasts, by the way, don't even reach like 100 downloads total.
And then also a really big tip is this.
All right, Shelby, thank you so much for doing this today and sitting down with me to talk through some content and podcasts.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you.
Yeah, so there's a lot that we could talk about. I feel like this could be like a couple hours long, so I'm gonna help both of us and for the folks listening too, and kind of really zone in and focus today on your podcast. But before we do that, can you add a little bit of context as to what you do? And I think that'll kind of transition us perfectly into the podcast and the content that you make today.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Shelby Clement. I own Shelby Clement Marketing. We refer to it as SCM. It is a social media management agency where we help people in industries that range from the oil and gas all the way down to small mom and pop shops with their social media presence. We build out strategy. We handle their social media. We are as hands-on as they want. So we'll literally write their caption, create their content, do their messages, engagement, all of that, all the way down to coaching, whether they want to be influencers or content creators, or maybe they have someone in-house that's already doing their social media, but just needs a little bit of help or hand-holding. So we kind of offer an array of those things. I started my business in 2021. And before that, I was in the oil and gas industry for 8 years. And I knew, actually, it's kind of funny because like in college, I was like, I don't ever want to get on stage or speak or like what all those things. I thought I would just be an entrepreneur and own a brick and mortar because that's what my parents do. And it's kind of weird how things like transition. And now I speak on stages. I obviously have a podcast. And when I started, the entrepreneur journey, I have it still, a picture of it on a board that was like, start my podcast. And that was in 2021. And so finally, when I met Ryan on LinkedIn, which is not my favorite platform, but I was on it because they told us to be on it. I met Ryan and I found out what he did. And I was like, okay, this is God's way of telling me it's time to start my podcast. And so there was born Damn Good Content Podcast that was launched and coached by Ryan and his team.
Look at that. Yes, the power of LinkedIn. And as you mentioned, this is, I think that's a good point. Since, we're on the topic of content and audience building, it's like, we just talked about this off air. Like, you don't have to have, like, the worst social media strategy, in my opinion, is being like, I'm going to post on social media.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's who are you talking to and what platform are you speaking on? And then what's your end goal? And so that's something that I think is important to note. Like, yes, you were posting on LinkedIn, but the success of your podcast, which we're going to get into, the success of that launch was because you cultivated an audience on a couple platforms.
Yes.
And you went deep on those platforms, right?
Yeah, that was exactly what happened.
Yeah.
A lot of times people ask me this, especially as a social media manager. They're like, I actually got this question this week when I was speaking somewhere, and they were like, what platforms do I need to be on? Do I need to be on XYZ? Because there's so many platforms. And what I ask them is, you can be on as many platforms as you want, but if your consumer is not on those platforms, then it's doing you no good. And so a lot of times what I tell people is they need to start with 1 or 2 platforms and really understand whether you like that platform or not. If your consumer is on that platform, then you need to be on that platform and super hone into that and then get that down pat and then add another one. If you have the budget and the bandwidth to hire someone that can strategically place you on additional platforms, then yes, go for it. But if you're not there yet and you're doing this alone or by yourself, or you're just starting your presence on social media, then let's take one step back and do 1 to 2 platforms to start where your consumers are. And that's really all you need, because there's so many social media gurus out there saying you just need to be on everything and be doing everything. You just need to post all the time. And that's just not accurate. So just take a deep breath and you just need to know 1 platform at a time and you're gold.
Yeah, that's the tragic flaw of most podcasters too, because they're trying to post X amount of posts on X amount of platforms. Like, okay, I'll post 3 posts on 5 platforms in one day. It's like, okay, that would take an entire day just to do that.
And as a social media manager, and I'm building my personal brand too, I have a business and a personal brand. Like that is a lot to go. I focus, my community is a lot on Instagram. Like I know that's my people. That's everybody that supports me, my super fans. And then there's Facebook. And heck, I would love to be on TikTok more, and I'd love to be on YouTube more, and I'd love to be on LinkedIn more. But I know my bandwidth and what I have to do for my team and my clients, that I have to take a step back and really understand, like, if I can go all in on those 2 platforms that people already know me and they're cheering for me, then why am I going to waste my time taking a step back from those and not giving them everything to try to add more platforms? So you have to ask yourself what's more important to you.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. In terms, because you mentioned Instagram, what really impressed me about your launch was you were doing, I don't know if this was before, during, after, but you were making videos with your guests on Instagram. Because I think you had some guests in person as well, or like
Yes.
that you were around physically, right? And
Yes.
you were actually making posts with them, which is also another thing that I get for some reason. I mean, you probably find this, but like podcasters have trouble. I mean, even me, like I've even had trouble with this, like promoting the thing, right? And it's like, but you do it in a fun way. So can you talk about that a little bit in terms of your like philosophy around kind of getting that message out? Like, I have this podcast episode with this person. You're not just saying that, you're also creating other
Like
content around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically what it is like you want to introduce, well, a lot of times too, when you interview someone in person, it's the power of collaboration. So you're obviously collaborating with your audience and their audience. So like when you post something, they're all going to know that it's coming out, and they want to know because their people love them and my people love me. So it's like a really good mesh. So always when I have someone in studio or even like online, I try to snap a quick pic and I post it and I'm like, hey, coming soon. We have a podcast that we just recorded that's amazing. And then what we do is like when we come up with these promo, and I even told y'all this when y'all had helped me launch and y'all did my promos and my now editor, but is I want something that's going to make people excited. I want clickbait. I want all of those things that are chopped out of that episode. It could be a dull episode. It could be one that's like, well, they gave us, it's like a movie preview. They gave us all of the goodness in that clip because they want to get us there. And so I was like, I gave him inspiration. Like, I'm going to say these names and y'all probably don't know who they are, but Caitlin Bristow, I know I showed y'all hers. I love how she does like her hype videos where it's like, it says their name, it goes black, it shows the guest, like it does those things. And then Call Her Daddy has a good one. I mean, obviously she goes way off the deep end with what she interviews, but her promo stuff is amazing. And that is why she's cultivated such an audience. So whether your podcast is boring, quote unquote, to you, or you don't think that your audience is going to love it, when you back that with hype of some sort, so music, black screen, showing their face, showing their name, episode, like those types of hype, I think that really helped with the launch of the podcast. And then also too, I filmed the journey. I filmed the journey from when I was starting, because I remember when I recorded my intro and outro and I was like, Ryan, this shit sucks. And I shared that with my audience. I was like, y'all, I thought I wanted to do a podcast and I can't get an intro and outro. And like everybody was like, but you're so good at it. I was like, no, I just know I have to do this. And so like it really does suck. I still get nervous, but like I brought my community with me along for the ride so they could see that there was a podcast coming. And I even did hype clips where it was like me, B-roll of me talking, and then it was like, hey, coming soon. And it was just like really cool things. I didn't say the name until launch. Like we got closer to launch. Like I didn't show the artwork. I didn't show any of those things. So it's just the power of marketing behind that as well.
Yeah, you are such a great example, though, of the document. It's like the Gary Vee document versus create, like you are creating too, as you're mentioning, like creating these trailers and promos is work. Like whether you're doing the editing or an editor's doing it, it's like it's money, time, investment, energy. Like it is work to do that, but also to create those, what I would, I guess, call like day-to-day videos that you make, whether it's on your story, like that's something that always keeps those super fans like engaged, because those people will always, they just want to like know what's going on in your life. Like not that they're like completely invested in every second of your day. It's just they're going to watch it.
Yeah.
And if you create a predictable schedule, which in your case is basically daily, then they'll come back. And so if you infuse the podcast into that, now they are learning about your podcast, but there's no, it's not weird. Like it's not this thing. It's almost, I kind of want to flip the mindset on this. Like it's selfish to not promote it.
Yes.
Because if you truly feel it is good, right? Like if you think it's not good, then,
Don't
I
do
would
it.
say, yeah, or, promote it anyway, I guess. But like then that would tell you if you're not promoting your thing, then there's some kind of friction. Like,
Right.
what's the problem? Right. And so but that's happened to me too, where I'm like, yeah, I would overthink the episode or whatever, and in reality, it's John Mayer. Like I still use the same quote that he's said since 2008, which is the audience is always right. We can
Yeah.
never predict. It's like the weather. It's like, you just don't know what's going to happen. You could be like, this is the best podcast in the world. And then that one could flop. And then the one that you personally didn't love could be the one that people like. So
Exactly. Because like the thing too, a lot of the podcasts I put out that I actually think are terrible, like literally, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Jonah calls and says, I need a solo episode to edit for you. And I'm like, that's like my worst ones to do. I hate staring at myself in a camera and just talking, except my last episode I actually did love because I actually had notes from what it was talking about. But the ones I hate the most, actually, my phone blows up and they're like, I love these. I love how transparent you are. You sound so confident. It's the thing that boils down to this. If you don't think that your podcast is good, then no one else is going to think it's good. And the sense of you have to believe in what you're doing and the time and the money and the effort that you're taking, because it's not easy. So if you're wanting to do this, it takes time and effort, especially if you don't have the budget to pay for an editor. So then you have to take a step back and you have to edit. You have to do all those things. Now, a lot of times what I deal with is people just have imposter syndrome, or they get in their head and it's a mindset thing that they know it's good. They know I'm called to do this, but go, oh my God, so many other people are going to do this. Who's going to listen to my podcast? And I'm just going to tell you, you have to get over yourself. Flip that script and say, I just want to influence one person. I just want to touch one person with my podcast, not millions, not hundreds, not even 20. I just want to touch one. And if you start there and you flip your mindset to, I only want to talk to one person, then it's gold. And then your whole mindset shifts, and then marketing becomes freaking easy because you're just talking to your friend on the other side of the radio, their phone, YouTube, whatever the case is.
Yeah. And let's talk about that person, right? Like if you are that person that's listening to somebody's podcast who you follow, you sending that message, like you getting your phone blown up or getting those texts, even just one of like, hey, love this episode. Like, just love how transparent you are. Like you just said, like that text for a podcaster is killer. Like that is motivation for like a month,
They're like, I'm about to go record 1 million.
I know, right? And props to you too, because you did do an early solo. I don't know if it was episode 1 or in the first 3 or
yeah. So it was just because we launched 4 at one time, and we did solo interview. So I try to mix it up because you still like, if you're going to be an interviewer and you still want to be an authoritative figure in your space, you need to have solo episodes in between. Even though you're interviewing someone, you're spotlighting someone else, your voice is still on it. But in reality, you're spotlighting their goodness and what they do within the community and their business. So if you want to still stand out as that authoritative figure, then you need to do solo episodes as well. So then you show people that I do know what I'm doing and I'm not just doing a podcast to interview other people. Now, if you are just doing a podcast to interview other people, that is totally fine. But if you're doing a podcast to build your personal brand on a stance that your knowledge is behind, then you need to incorporate solo episodes no matter how cringy they are.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I've been basically doing them 100% scripted. There's really nothing in there now that's not, and it's scripted, but I can go off within the script, right? So I'll do 30-minute, and then that comes down to about 10 after the editing, right? So I'm not sure how you're approaching it. Are you doing, like you mentioned, having like a little framework, or are you kind of just letting it go?
So some of them are just like, I'm gonna start talking, because this is the thing. A lot of my creativity comes when I don't have my freaking mic. And like, I want to record, and I'm like, I have this really great thought. Well, now that my renovation is done, I can actually do it at my house. But like, I have this thought of like what I want to talk about. And so then I'll just do a voice memo on my phone. Sorry, hold on.
This is by the way, this is what happens with a podcast. This is just life.
Okay.
No, I'm not talking to you, Shelby. I'm talking to the audience. Okay. But just so people know, like, this is part of it. That's why, like, whenever something happens with the recording, I'm like, this is podcasting, folks. It's not podcast. Like, it's like your dog barking. It's your kid walks in the room. Like, anyway, so I just like to highlight that. So
it's a voice memo I'll leave on my phone. But the reason the last episode probably was my favorite is because I did have more of like, it wasn't a script. It was literally the journal that I went to a conference with. And I literally was like, we're going to be candid. and I'm just going to flip through the pages and I'm going to tell you what I was thinking as I was writing these notes from these speakers that I saw. And so everybody was like, that's so powerful, because that episode was me being raw and real, pausing, saying, wait, let me figure out what I was thinking in that moment. But it was also sharing about a conference I went to that my audience didn't know about or will never go to. So they felt like they were a part of that as well. But a lot of my other solo episodes, truly, I'm like, okay, am I going to talk about a social media tip today? Like, I'll think of something and I might give myself 3 bullet points. But I will say that I'm really good at shooting from the hip. I'm really bad at script, because you're going to be able to tell that I'm reading, and then my brain works faster. So it's like I'm reading, but I'm skipping to the next paragraph. So then I stutter and I'm just like, this shit's for the birds. So I learned myself and I know what works for me, and I just need those bullet points. But when my guests come in, honey, I don't have anything written out. I'm just like, I know you. I did my research on, I basically know them. But when they come in, I just talk. Now, I will say, I don't know if you saw well, you're not really on Instagram, so you have probably no idea what I'm about to tell you.
I'm like, kind of Instagram sober right now.
So I went to this conference 2 weeks ago or whenever, 3 weeks ago or whatever, and I met Trent Shelton. Do you know who that is?
No.
He was an NFL player. He's a motivational speaker. He's like 2.7 million followers, like all these things. So he's like more of like he's a Christian motivation speaker, I will say. Talks about protecting your peace and all that stuff. And so I met him at this conference. And like when I meet famous people, it's at this point, I've just been in a room with a bunch of people. Everybody's human to me. And a lot of them are a lot introverted, and you think they're extrovert, but they're introverted. And what really impressed me with him was he was very intentional of speaking to me. This is just a fun fact. If you ever meet a famous person, this is how you decipher if you actually really like them or not. And he was like very intentional. He looked me directly in the eyes. There was a line of people waiting to meet him, and he was like very tunnel vision on me. And I really just walked up to say thank you for that speech. I just wanted to meet you and say thank you for your time, and like it really touched me and all this stuff, and take a picture, because I mean, why not? And he was like, no, wait, well, what about you? And so then I started telling him these things that were going on with me. And then I walked away. And then later that night, my friend was like, she has something to ask you. And I was like, and I talk really fast when I get really nervous. So I was like, I have this really small podcast, and it would be really exciting if you would be a guest on it. And I know you're in like the season of no, but maybe like if you're in the season of yes, would you be on my podcast? And like I literally went on like this long tangent, and he was like, I don't think any podcast is small. Yes, I'll be on your podcast. And I was like, holy shit. So it's just like these cool things. I will probably do a lot of research for him because he's a guest and he's famous, and I don't want to waste his time. But like my guests that come in studio, I just love the whole point of that, to wrap that around, is I love a good conversation, and I love it to be organic and not planned out, where I literally have a question and then I'm like, okay, they answered that question. Okay, my question number 2 is this. Yep. I really like am trying to be so intentional that when they answer that question, I listen and I ask questions I have questions, but I ask that another question based on what they said there. So it's like, I'll have an initial question, but I focus on what they're saying. So I ask a question based on what they said to me, because I want to go like, first off, I ask my guests, like, is any question off limits? Because I'm a question freak and I want to know like everything. Like if you start talking and you tell me like you started your business and this was your turning point, okay, I need to know what that detail of that turning point was. What were you feeling in that moment? Like I want the juicy gossip stuff that you don't just tell everybody. Yep. So that's kind of how I run my episodes. And I think, it just kind of works for me until I interview Trent Shelton and Jasmine Starr. Then I'm really going to do some research. So
yeah, make sure for people listening to this, make sure you look both of them up, especially Jasmine too.
Jasmine Starr, she's a big deal.
Killer program too. A few things there. So the first one is like, coming back to the beginning of what you said. Yeah. If I'm making a solo episode, it's for a few reasons. It's to repurpose it on LinkedIn, right? And then it's also for YouTube, click-through rate, views, subscribers. Like I'm optimizing for that, right? So that's why the content's scripted. Now, it's not scripted in the way, like I'm not reading. Like I look at it, I do it, and I do as many takes as I need to do. But that's the goal for my solo episodes. Your solo episodes, you have this kind of core group of super fans who listen and watch you, right? That you can go off the dome that's what they want. Like, you're actually delivering what your audience wants. For me, like, it's different goals, right? So you don't, that's something that I wanted to highlight, where it's like, we're not all doing the same thing. Every podcast is different. Every podcast has these different goals. Every solo episode, some people are optimizing for YouTube, some LinkedIn, some Instagram, some TikTok, who
Yeah.
knows, right? But they're two different things. And then the second thing is, we've had our other shows do conference recaps, and they've actually done really well. And I think partially because the people who are interested in that conference will also stumble upon that next year, right? Or whatever. Or maybe, oh, I saw these people go. Let's see what it's like, right? So that's just a twofold thing. And then, like, the final point on that is, the feeling is everything, right? Coming back to the solos. Like, if you do one and it's scripted and it sounds scripted and it feels scripted, then that outcome's not good, right? So but it's all about, like, it's all about the feel first and the information second. You have
Yes.
to feel like you're talking to somebody. Or at least that's the goal, um,
Yes.
for sure. And when it comes to this type of content, and just in the instance of time, I want to pivot slightly to
Yeah.
talk about the launch of your podcast, because you had one of the highest downloaded podcasts for day one that we've ever launched.
Shut up. No way.
Yeah. So yeah, because you did about like 500 downloads almost in the first like
It was
5 days of the
so
podcast.
stupid. I was like, I cried. I was like, I did not think that this was like.
Most podcasts, by the way, don't even reach like 100 downloads total. So the fact that you had 500, and that's like just the stats of, that's why you got to figure out how to launch a podcast if you're going to do it. So you get these type of results. But so for you, what were the things that really helped make that launch like successful? It could be social, it could be the editing, it could be the planning of the podcast beforehand.
I think so. It had a lot to do with you guys teaching and setting it up the right way. So like y'all were able to come in. So so everybody that doesn't know this, before we launched the podcast, they launched it for me, but they also coached me. I want to think for like what, 2, 3 months, 4 months. I don't even know. Started
A couple months.
Because we didn't launch until June.
Yep.
Because we kept pushing it back because Jasmine was like, "You're not ready," and she was right. Obviously,
yes. By the way, do never rush your podcast launch.
Never rush your podcast. And so basically, what happened was, first off, y'all coached me the right way. We got to the point of like who I was speaking to, what it was, all that stuff. Set me up on all the right platforms of everything that I needed, and coached me through all the things I needed to do the right way. And then what happened is I built hype around social media. Yeah. And I built hype around email, and I built hype around the people around me. And I built that hype first, and then I launched that sucker. So like they got so like it started with like, there's something exciting coming. Any guesses? And then it started with, I dropped, I think, the graphic. And then everybody was like, holy shit, she dropped the name of the graphic. Or wait, no, it started with a picture of me just with a podcast mic. And I was like, any guesses on the name? I'm dropping it, whatever. So then you give them that excitement to see what's next. And then I dropped the graphic or the art that y'all made for me. And everybody was like, holy shit. And so like then we dropped the launch date, but everything in between on my stories. And I even have video of me where I'm like, there's fun videos, because the reality of videos, I guess you would say, is like me recording and then me slumping down in my chair being like, this shit is so hard. And you know what I mean? Like, and I showed them that it's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's not perfect. And then they also got ones that were really hype, where it was like different clips of me. And at the end it said, hey, welcome to, or it said like, hi, I'm Shelby Clement, the host of blah. And I blocked it out, so they couldn't see that. They couldn't hear that yet. So, but it's like the build of the hype. So social media, I think, is let me back up. Social media, I know, is a huge asset to podcast launch or anything that you're launching in general. I just looked up the downloads as of today, Ryan, and they're at 3,472. So We've literally launched in June. So what's that? 4 months? Crap. June, July, August, September, October, 5 months. Well, basically 5 months. Yeah. And it's just because the sole purpose is you want to keep it in front of them. So my strategy is every time I record an episode, even if it doesn't launch until November or it doesn't launch until December, because we always record in advance, sorry, I lost my train of thought. We always record in advance, I still showcase that I interviewed them, and that's what they got to look forward to. And then also a really big tip is this. I launched 4 episodes in one day. And so when you're thinking about that is when you launch, think about Netflix when a new movie comes out or a new series comes out and they are like, oh, we have a new series, but you get 1 episode. And you're like, and sometimes the first episode sucks. If I would have launched the first episode, we would not have gotten 500 downloads. Cause I was like, even my husband was like, oh, you sounded so nervous. I was like, well, no shit, dude. Like I was so nervous. But I backed it up. That second interview was baller. And then it was a solo episode. Then that 4th interview was baller. So then when I dropped it, they could binge damn good content. And so they knew it's weekly every Wednesday, but the first Wednesday they got 4. So it's a lot of work on the front end. And Ryan and Jack helped me with that because they had to edit 4 episodes. We had to drop it. We were all a nervous freaking wreck. Well, I was. I don't know if they were. That's what they do for a living. But I think it's just like what you do leading up. So bring your community in no matter what platform you're on. And then 2, launch more than 1 podcast episode. So even if it's just 2 or 3, like it doesn't have to be over the top like me, it's 4. And then just like take them along the journey. Like Ryan said, people just like to know. They're weird. People are very weird in a good way. I say this all the time when I speak. They want to know about you. And just giving them that extra layer and pulling back that curtain is not telling them every single thing about you. Because if you follow me, I share a lot of crap, but people don't know me. Like they don't know me. But they feel like they do. That's built that trust in that community. So like no matter what I launch, no matter what I sell, no matter what I do, you're now building that community. And I think that that is a huge thing for what that launch was.
Yeah, I'm with that. Yeah, that was it right there. That's the launch strategy. And also to kind of paint that full picture, those people who want to get to know you even more, that's why the podcast is there. If you don't have that, they will get to know somebody else. And that's just the reality, right? Because we only have so many hours in the day. So if we only have, sure, you might commute 2 hours a day, but there's 4 million podcasts out there, So that's the thing. Like if you don't have that, and also once people reach escape velocity with their audience, like once their numbers really start to grow in terms of follower count, that is like you will launch the podcast at the perfect time, the right time, right? Because it's like you can't keep gaining and then give them nothing deeper, right? So there's also a lesson in that for people who are seeing growth in their audience.
Yeah.
It's probably time, even if you don't think it is, it's probably time to give the audience something deeper on a deeper level.
Yes, absolutely. And it helps just build your reputation, your credibility, your authority building, all those things like this. So the podcast now trickled to, I don't know if you saw, I'm putting on a conference, a 1-day conference.
Yeah, that was the thing that your in-person events is what I'm most impressed with out of everything
So
that you
it's
do.
called
Just
Damn Good Marketing Live. Like, holy shit. Like we played off of one. And what I'm going to end up doing is do live podcast recordings. So basically we'll have speakers and live pack, but that intertwines everything. So even if you're just doing a podcast for fun, if you know the whole goal and purpose behind your podcast, you just have to be willing to be candid and give the audience and the community what they want. And so I now am going to get in the front, like a lot of the people that's coming to my conference probably majority of them do, but probably not all of them know I have an actual podcast. So it's going to be really cool because 1, they've never been in front of a live podcast because we're going to do that. And then 2, now they're going to go listen, or vice versa. The people that are listening are going to want to go to the conference next year. So like you have to really understand your audience and what you're giving them, and it all intertwines together. I just think it's like the beauty of messaging and social and just marketing in general. There's all these new marketing mediums to the point of like people are against and like they have this perception on social media and blah, 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 all this stuff, but it can literally change your life. I mean, you're seeing it. You're a walking testimonial of that. I'm a walking testimonial of that, and podcasting. So
we wouldn't be here without it. Yeah. We wouldn't be able to do these things without, like, that's what I say. And you're a testimonial of doing it all. Like you do the live, you do the podcast, you do the social every day, you do the stories, you do the foreshadow. You're like the queen of foreshadowing. That's kind of what you were alluding to before, giving them a little bit, but not the thing yet. And so then once the thing comes, they know it's coming. Yes. So that is like the 2 big ones, the launch preparation, multiple episodes, just to recap that and the foreshadowing. Most people don't do enough of it. I don't even do enough of it. So yeah, have a plan though, have a strategy. Take your time. I think that's also the big one here. So Shelby, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on to chop it up about your podcasting content. We could talk for hours.
We could.
For a long form episode.
I want to leave everybody with one tip, because you did say I do it all. So I do have a team, but I will say this. The magic behind getting so much content and documenting so much content is your phone. So like right now we're recording and he's recording this, and I'll probably ask for it anyway so I could chop it up. But in the same sense, I have my phone to the left of me. So anything that I do, I record. And that's just documenting the process of you. You don't necessarily have to use it, but like when you need B-roll or you need to pull back the curtains of the process that you're doing or all that, like people say, oh, it's too hard to do that. No, you don't need a fancy camera. You don't need all these things. You need your phone and you just hit record. And it's literally leaned up on my coffee mug right now, and it's selfie with it recording. So that is just like a fun tip to give y'all if you want to document it, because if you're recording, might as well video it so then you can now use it for social. You knocked out 2 things. Boom.
Everything is content.
Every single thing you do is content. Everything.
I have a camera off to the side.
See?
Yep, 100%. We're doing it. It doesn't take much. You don't even need the camera.
We're doing the damn thing. We're doing it.
That's it. So let people know where they can find you. I'll have it all in the show notes and description for when this comes out. But the handles, the podcast, you mentioned it, but let folks know.
Yeah. So the podcast is Damn Good Content Podcast. It's on all major, I don't even know what you call those platforms. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all those. If you want to actually watch it, you can go to YouTube because all my episodes are there. My handle for Instagram, actually kind of across the board, is it's Shelby Clement. Clement spelled like Clement, Clement. And then my business is Shelby Clement Marketing. I'm very heavy on Instagram, but I'm basically across the board. I just don't post on every single thing. But thank you so much for having me. I think this was really good. And like you said, we could probably talk for hours on all of it.
Yeah, that's why you got to be your own best producer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my time is up. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's it. We could keep going. Yeah, thanks, Shelby. Really appreciate it. All the links are below to check out everything that she has going on. And thanks for getting to the end of this episode to learn more about your podcasting content. Keep investing in your personal brand and your podcast, and we'll be here to deliver the value. All right. Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you.